Welcome to this explainer. Listen, he who has ears, let him really hear what we're about to dive into today. We're not just looking at some dusty old stones or ancient historical dates here. No, we are looking at the absolute profound mystery of divine restoration. I want you to prepare your hearts for this. We're going to examine exactly how the Almighty takes what is completely shattered, lives devastated by sin and exile, and breathes holy life right back into their very foundations. So stay with me. And let's listen closely to what the Spirit is revealing through this incredible piece of history. So I have to ask you, can a ruined foundation actually rise again? When a life is just devastated by sin, stripped completely bare like the captive Israelites were, the world usually looks at that and says, well, it's finished. It's over. The temple of God was literally burned to ashes and the people were chained in a foreign land. But man, if you listen to the testimonies of the radically redeemed today, people pulled from the absolute deepest pits, the kind of stories you hear on platforms like Testimonies of Faith, they all bear witness to one thing. Where the world sees only total desolation, the God of heaven sees a blank canvas. He is the master builder. And truly, I tell you, he specializes in ruins. Now consider the timeline of how this master builder works. From the very first year of Cyrus, when the decree was initially spoken, all the way to the second year of Darius, when hands finally returned to the plow, and then to the sixth year of Darius, when the temple actually stood complete. The world just saw delay, right? They saw endless opposition. But truly, heaven's clock is never, ever late. The long, completely unseen hand of providence was at work the whole time. Don't let the waiting deceive you. The sovereign Lord is always orchestrating history, literally moving the heavy hearts of emperors across entire decades just to fulfill his holy word. You see, what is whispered in the dark will absolutely be proclaimed from the rooftops. Deep in the fortress of Media, hidden away in the dusty archives of Akhmetha, a pagan king uncovers this forgotten scroll. Let the temple be rebuilt, the place where sacrifices are offered. Look at how the Father ensures his promises are never permanently buried. It's incredible. Even the massive empires of men, with all their vast archives and worldly power, well, they're really just tools in the hand of the Almighty, ready to vindicate his word at the exact appointed hour. And I say to you, the wealth of the wicked is absolutely stored up for the righteous. Just listen to these words from King Cyrus. Let the expenses be paid from the royal treasury. Think about that for a second. The very empires that enslaved the exiles, the massive powers of Babylon and Persia, are literally commanded by heaven to fund the holy work of their restoration. We hear the same truth echoed by so many recognized preachers today, proclaiming how God constantly uses the most unlikely sources to provide for his own. So don't just look at the limits of your own purse. Look to the Father, because he owns the royal treasuries of the entire earth. Because here is a powerful truth. That which the thief has stolen in the night, the Lord commands to be returned in the light. Just as Nebuchadnezzar originally plundered those sacred vessels and dragged them into the darkness of Babylon, the adversary tries to plunder our souls. Yet King Cyrus was mandated to return them. God doesn't just patch up the walls, you guys. He calls back the holy vessels. He demands the return of what the enemy thought he had claimed forever, and he completely restores it to its rightful, sanctified place. And when God decrees that kind of restoration, the enemy is completely paralyzed. The adversaries of Israel were given a super strict mandate. Stay away. Do not hinder the work. Oh, and by the way, pay all their expenses without delay. It's exactly like the countless modern converts who testify about their own miraculous deliverances. The very forces that were aligned to destroy you will suddenly be made to stand back and literally fund your rebuilding. God takes the devourer and transforms him into the provider. When the Lord's hand is on you, the powers of darkness are, frankly, completely powerless to stop his glorious work. Bulls, rams, lambs, wheat, salt, wine, and oil. The king demanded that all of this be given daily, without fail. Now why? Because the fire on the altar must never, ever go out. I tell you the truth, true restoration is not just about stacking stones to make a building. It's about a daily, unending surrender of the flesh. Rebuilding the temple was fundamentally about restoring the sacrifice. And in the same way, your life must be a living sacrifice, a continual, daily offering of praise and devotion that burns brightly before the throne of God, day and night. But woe to the one who actually tries to hinder the work of the Almighty. The decree says, let a timber be pulled from their house and let them be impaled upon it. Wow. Just feel the terrifying, totally uncompromising weight of that. To stand against the restoration of God is basically inviting the complete collapse of your own foundation. The Father zealously defends his sanctuary and his people, right? Those who actively seek to tear down what God is building are going to find their own houses brought to absolute total ruin. Yet you have to remember that stones and royal decrees are totally dead without the breath of the Spirit. It was through the powerful prophesying of Haggai and Zechariah that the elders actually succeeded in their building. Because man does not live on bread alone, and he sure doesn't build on mortar alone, but on every single word that comes from the mouth of God. It's that prophetic truth, the fearless preaching of the word, that animates the soul. That is what strengthens the weary hands of the builders and absolutely guarantees their success in the labor of the kingdom. So let's consider the dedication. We're talking hundreds of bulls, rams, and lambs. Just imagine that literal river of sacrifice, the smoke rising up to heaven, representing this profound, massive outpouring of repentance and worship. It must have been such an awe-inspiring moment of gratitude as the house of God was finally dedicated. But hidden right inside this immense offering is a symbol of a much deeper truth, a beautiful revelation of the heart of God for his scattered flock. 12 male goats, a sin offering specifically for the 12 tribes. Now think about this. Even though the northern tribes were scattered to the winds of the earth way before Babylon even fell, here we see the remnant offering blood for all of them. I tell you, a house divided cannot stand, but in the eyes of the Father, the covenant family remains eternally unbroken. Even in the absolute desolation of their exile, their spiritual unity is completely preserved. God's grace really does encompass the absolute entirety of his chosen people. And then we arrive at the third day of Adar. The 70 years of bitter weeping are finally over. The temple is finished. As it is written, so it is done. This exact date stands as a massive monument to faithful obedience that endured through the darkest possible captivity. Because he who begins a good work will absolutely carry it to completion. The promises of the Lord, even when they seem to take forever in the eyes of men, will most surely come to pass at his divinely appointed hour. But listen, walls without order are really just empty tombs. The priests and Levites were assigned to their specific divisions, exactly as it is written in the book of Moses. You see, you simply cannot welcome the glory of God into a rebuilt life while simultaneously rejecting the holy order of his word. True restoration isn't just about throwing up a structure and calling it a day. It's about a full, completely repentant submission to divine law. They had to go back to the original design because God will only inhabit what is built according to his truth. As the most powerful testimonies of faith today will tell you, you cannot eat at the table of the Lord and the table of demons. The priests purified themselves, the exiles ate the Passover lamb, completely separating themselves from the impurity of the surrounding nations. Hear this truth clearly. Restoration absolutely demands a sanctified heart. True purification requires an uncompromising separation from worldly defilement. If you really want to seek the Lord, the God of Israel, you've got to leave the filth of the earth behind.
Because weeping may endure for a night, but let me tell you, joy definitely comes in the morning. 7 full days of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Just contrast the bitter, heartbroken tears of the exiles sitting by the rivers of Babylon with this overflowing divine gladness. When the Lord finally turns the heart of your captors and establishes your foundation, he fills your mouth with a joy that the world literally cannot take away. Those who align themselves with God's holy rebuilding are going to shout with a laughter that echoes right into eternity.
So I leave you with this question. If the Almighty can command the wealth of massive empires, if he can turn the hearts of pagan kings and literally bend the entire arc of history just to rebuild a house of stone, what is he waiting to rebuild in you? You are the temple of the living God. That ancient decree of restoration, it is still echoing today. So will you remain in ruins or will you rise? He who has ears to hear, let him answer the call of the master builder.